So we learn about the mind by giving the mind work, giving it tasks, and seeing what happens. It's rather like finding out about eggs. Can look at an egg and break open an egg, learn about the biology and the chemistry of eggs, but far better is to put an egg into a boiling water or into a frying pan, or mixing it with flour. That's a much more profound understanding of an egg, at least as it has any meaning to human beings. So we're learning about effort by making effort. And we can see that effort can be too strong and forceful. If you're someone who's achieved some success in your life through willpower and just gritting your teeth and putting the time, putting the effort into something, then that can become your preferred or automatic default kind of way of approaching problems in life. But with meditation it doesn't work. You're too forceful, too intense, too controlling and aggressive, then the mind becomes tense, the breathing changes and becomes forced and uncomfortable. You develop headaches, constriction in the chest area. All these phenomena, these are feedback. This is the body and mind telling you too harsh, too strong, too forceful. If you don't put enough effort, then the mind is sinking into dullness or escaping into memories and fantasies and imagination. So those things are also not indications of how good a meditator you are. They're simply moment by moment feedback on what needs to be tweaked, adjusted, set right. The famous analogy that the Buddha gave to Sona is of the lute or the guitar, which if the strings are too tight, they'll snap. If they're too loose, won't get a good sound from them. So we're putting forth effort, and there is the sampajanya, the sort of quality control feature of the meditative mind, which is making adjustments, sensitive to what works and what doesn't work. This is not something you can plan ahead. It's not something in a book. It's something you learn through trial and error. And when that balance is found between effort and relaxation, and then the mind burns up the defilements, becomes atapi. So this is one more life skill that we are developing during meditation, being able to blend those qualities of determination and effort and striving with relaxation. Well, without this training, then we tend to oscillate between two extremes. Effort means stress. Relaxation means indulgence. But those two things can be blended together. We learn to do that by simple expedient of putting our attention on an object such as the breath, seeing what works and what doesn't work. So the hindrances that arise are indications that our practice is not, our effort is not atapi. It's not that blend of effort and or trying or willpower and relaxation that we need. The hindrances, each one covers quite a wide range of mental phenomena, and beginning with the first hindrance, at its coarsest level, it might be quite obscene sexual fantasies, but then it may simply just be a gentle kind of pleasure in some memory, some thought about something you like and enjoy in the world, which is completely innocent, or at its more subtle level, it's a simple movement towards the pleasant. It can be just kind of a nudge, just an inclination, just kind of basking in pleasant sensation. Similarly with the second hindrance, can range from just a moment of white-hot anger and resentment, go through to just a general kind of dissatisfaction and fault-finding. And at its most subtle level, it's a very gentle moving away from the unpleasant, turning one's back on the unpleasant. So as the meditation develops, then the coarser forms of the defilements tend to fade away. But there are still these subtle remnants, particularly in this movement of towards the pleasant, away from the unpleasant. That has to be purified or abandoned before the mind can truly enter into that state of clarity, stability, joy of samadhi. The third hindrance so has its coarser manifestations of nodding and even falling asleep during meditation, and goes through the spectrum, through some general dullness and disinclination to move forward, just sinking into the object. There's a sense of heaviness and stiffness in the mind, and at its more subtle level, that stiffness is the defining quality. So it can seem as if the mind is calm and at peace, but it has a dullness. It lacks that clarity and wakefulness and brightness and ease of samadhi. So see if you can, if you have ever observed, or if you observe that slight stiffness is what I would call it of the mind, inflexibility. And that third hindrance arises from a number of different causes, and the extent to which we are hooked in or addicted even to something going on in our brain and mental activity, thinking and planning and deciding and all these different things. Then when we remove our minds, or when we put those things down, then the grief and the dukkha that arises from that separation either manifests itself as mental agitation or as dullness. If the mind's very dependent on stimulation to feel alive, then when stimulation is removed, then the mind can just drop into a dark pit. And the remedy for this is not solely to be found in meditation technique, but in one's whole attitude to the sensual world. And there's a need for more attention to sense restraint in daily life, which means caring for your eyes and your ears in particular. Having a better filter on what you allow into your mind. Another cause of this hindrance is practicing in order to become calm and become peaceful, and confusing the calm of samadhi with relaxation. So this is one of the maras to be alert to in meditation as the mental activity and agitation falls away. There's a very pleasant sense of relaxation arises. But in Buddhist practice, that's not the goal of meditation at all. It's a byproduct, if you like. But if you just settle back and to enjoy that relaxation, you indulge in that relaxation, then you will become sleepy, or the dullness of mind. So our goal is not to become peaceful. Our goal is to be awake and to be liberated from all attachment. So as the mind becomes purified of defilements, then there is a sense of relaxation and well-being, but these are not the goals. They can be appreciated, and they can empower the meditation, give you confidence, but they are simply to be recognized, and we move on. Thinking is not the enemy. Without thinking, the world, the human beings would be in a sorry state indeed, and in fact they can't really conceive of the human being without thinking. It's as natural to the brain as any other function of the body. But we are learning how to bring some discipline to the thinking process, meaning that when it's appropriate to think, we can think. When there's no need to think, we don't have to think. So thinking, we can hold on to thinking very tightly. Educated people whose livelihood, whose status, success in the world is all bound up with thinking, inevitably hold on to it as sort of essential to their sense of who they are, their identity. And so thinking is letting go of thinking in meditation. It's not simply a kind of a technical problem, but we have to recognize what thinking means, an absence of thought or abandoning thought, and the fears and anxieties that can come up. If you give great value to thinking, and to overcome this, faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is the most effective antidote. And we have faith in the Buddha's great wisdom, great compassion. And if he is teaching us to let go of thinking and explore that dimension, those dimensions of the mind which are only accessible when we stop thinking, and that we have faith in the Buddha's compassion that he wouldn't teach us to do something that was harmful, then we strengthen ourselves in that faith and let go and see what happens. So there are techniques for dealing with agitation of the mind, but we have to look behind it also to, again, daily life, sense restraint or lack of sense restraint, and the meaning and value that we find in thinking and how essential it is to our idea of who we are. In fact, mental agitation is not difficult to abandon. Simply be aware of the thinking. Don't fight it. Don't try and force it down. Don't be intimidated, overwhelmed by it. Simply, thinking. And it's like shining a light on the thinking. And the effort to be aware of thinking replaces the thinking. You can't have agitation and the knowing of the agitation coexist. So rather than fighting it head on, or seeing it as an enemy, you say, well, let's just look at this, let's just see this, what's happening, and being the observer of agitation. And agitation shrivels up by itself if you're not feeding it, if you don't really want it to be there. Doubt is the most kind of tricky of the hindrances, because when we are doubting about something, we kind of feel we're being smart, and the doubting voice and the smart voice in our heads sound rather similar. So it's a matter of saying, oh, this is doubt. Yeah. Just to say, this is Mara, I see you Mara, I see you doubt, and don't get caught up with the logic of doubt. There is a time for assessment and evaluation outside of the meditation, but within the meditation, recognize doubt as doubt and simply put it down. The Buddha says that abandoning the first hindrance of the will and drive towards sensual pleasure, abandoning that is like becoming free of debt. Abandoning the second hindrance of ill will is like recovering from a fever. Abandoning sloth and torpor is like being free from prison. Being free from mental agitation is like becoming free from slavery. And being free from doubt is like finding the path back home out of the desert after a period of being lost and confused. So this is like a booster. This not gaining anything, but the clear recognition of the absence, the cessation of hindrances is what gives the boost towards samadhi.